Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening for Elementary Dragon Virtual Information Night. My name is Heidi Mercer, and I am the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning for Lake Orion Community Schools. With us this evening, we have Carrie Anderson, the Director of Curriculum, Mark Snyder, the Director of Communication and Marketing, and we also have Nick Cosia, our Dragon Virtual Coordinator. So this evening, we are going to provide information regarding our Dragon Virtual program for elementary. We are going to go for an hour. We have a short presentation at the very beginning, and then we'll have a time for question and answer. You should have a box where you can put your questions, and then if those aren't answered throughout the presentation, Carrie will be asking those questions at the end of our presentation. So thank you again for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Nick.
Thanks, Heidi. So I'm going to share my screen with a presentation that we put together here, and we will go that way. And all right, thanks for taking the time, everybody, to be here tonight. We wanted to first offer some logistical information. Our current virtual learning plan is set to take place the same time in-person learning resumes on October 26th. And our registration, as you may or may not know, is already open. It opened today at 8 a.m. And we are planning on closing it on October 2nd. That's Friday at 4 p.m. We're not going to accept late registrations this time around. We opened it back up again for another 24 hours back this last round, but we need to be very clear this time, due to scheduling and staffing, we cannot accept late registrations. So please, if you're considering it, please, please, please reach that deadline by 4 o'clock this Friday. If you choose to go the virtual route, you're going to commit for the remainder of the school year. And this has been one of the hot button issues this time around, and we'll address it more as this presentation goes on. And just on the surface, the year-long commitment is required for student and program consistency. But like I said, we'll address that more as the presentation continues. So from a bird's eye view, the elementary level virtual program, our LOCS teachers will design and lead all Dragon virtual classes, including the specials. It's not going to look all that different from what you're experiencing now in a remote setting. The courses will follow in-person learning, scope, and sequence. So even the students that are in the building learning with their teachers face-to-face will be undertaking the same curriculum and following the same curriculum maps and pacing as our virtual students. So everybody will be tied in there together. We will provide daily live instruction following a set schedule, very similar to remote, and we'll share some sample schedules later on in this presentation. The live instruction will be highly encouraged, but it's not required. We understand each family has their own unique circumstances, and they can make those live meetings whenever possible. But if you can't, for whatever reason, we're going to be recording those, and those sessions will be posted for students to view when it best meets the needs of your unique situation. Students will be responsible to adhere to all due dates on assignments and assessments, and some of those may be in person. Social distancing, we of course would accommodate for any in-person assessments or assignments that are going to be required, but those are going to be few, if any, we're hoping. Furthermore, when it comes to scheduling our students for Dragon Virtual, we are first going to schedule our students with a teacher in their neighborhood school whenever possible. We realize that we want familiar faces, and it might even come down that your child's current teacher is their virtual teacher, but That may not be the case either. If it's not possible due to enrollment being low, for an example, students will be scheduled to a teacher from another district building. This will be all LOCS teachers certified in their content areas. We want to make sure that everyone knows that our caring staff will be taking the charge on this, but like I said earlier, we are going to make sure as best we can to make sure that our students are being led through all of this with their neighborhood teachers whenever possible. Students will be allowed to participate in any in-person events and activities hosted at their neighborhood school after hours. And just in alignment with how you're experiencing remote right now, assignments and meetings, we'll continue to use Seesaw and Zoom for daily meetings and those assignment turn-ins. So as I said earlier, we've got some sample schedules. This is a sample schedule for K through 2, our lower L. And you can see here, we start with a morning meeting and we move throughout the day, very similarly to what we're doing in remote here. We have brain breaks built in, and we really try to focus the time to make sure it's worthwhile, and we weren't, building too many breaks in and just making it too condensed in areas or anything like that. But we've got the 45-minute lunch and recess in the middle of the day. You can see specials are built in there, and then there's time at the end of the day for teachers to invite their students for small group work. Here's an example of the upper L schedule. It's very similar. Specials in the middle of the day, but many of the same aspects as the lower L. One of the things that we also wanted to bring up was in the event of a building or the entire district needing to go remote for whatever reason, what would the effects be on Dragon Virtual students? And there really wouldn't be any. Dragon Virtual will continue normally in their virtual setting. We wouldn't need to change any staff. Students will stay with their assigned Dragon Virtual teacher throughout any remote session. So selecting virtual, you will be sort of buffered from that impact. If you're looking for any questions or any frequently asked questions, we have the registration links, important dates, and any sort of technology help. You can visit the Lake Orion Community Schools website, lakeorionschools.org. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email the Dragon Virtual email address there, dragonvirtual@lok12.org. Or if you would like, and which I prefer, if you shoot your emails directly to me, that would be great too. My email is listed there. That is the totality of our presentation here. I will stop sharing and we can move to question and answer if everyone is ready.
We have 3 questions so far, so we'll just kind of go in order. I have 4 kids in elementary school. I would prefer that they go to in-person classes, but I'm aware that that is very likely, might be unlikely. One or all of them will get some sort of bug this winter. If symptoms are all required to quarantine. So would all their children need to stay home if they have COVID symptoms? Heidi, that might be a better question for you.
Yeah. If they have COVID symptoms, then yes, they would be staying home. That is correct.
That's part of that.
And
Go ahead,
yeah,
sorry.
it is part of the COVID protocol that is listed on our website in the return to school plan. There is a protocol there that spells all of that out, how the district will handle it.
And we have the Clear to Go app that everyone's going to be filling out on a daily basis. And among those questions, there's a tie basically if you've been exposed to someone, who has COVID positive. So anyone in the family who would have been exposed to the positive individual within the same family. So obviously that would negate all of them from answering that question in passing. So that's why we have a lot of the families tied within the Clear to Go app.
Okay, so Nick, the other next question is, are you saying that if we choose virtual, our child might have a different teacher than the one he's had since the start of the school year?
Yes, that is a possibility because we, as we start to staff this, teachers will volunteer to take virtual sections, and that your current teacher may not be one of the virtual teachers that decide to fill that position.
In order to get this to work across the district, it's very important that people know that essentially this is going to cause a restaffing at the elementary level. That is why, that is one of the prime reasons why the commitment is for a year, because we do not want to keep moving our students from teacher to teacher, and we need consistency within our programming. So when we're only using our staff, this is the result of that happens. So yes, there will be quite a few students throughout the district, both in person and virtual, that are assigned a different teacher.
I missed the first 5 minutes. Why is literacy in the schedule twice? Is one reading and one writing?
Yes, short answer.
Yes, and also the students' literacy contains reading, writing, word study, lots of different pieces. So that is why we have literacy in there twice. If I decide for in-person class, it will keep assigned for the same teacher currently he's assigned to. I guess we answered that.
No, we cannot guarantee that. We don't know that.
Does Dragon Virtual follow the same LO school calendar regarding days off?
Yes, it will follow the in-person calendar.
And those calendars are still posted on our website in the same place they've been. So you can go and follow them under our quick links at the top of the page.
Any online activity, will any online activities be offered for DK, even maybe a half a day? 2 blocks or 1 hour in the morning is working well now. So basically, will DK be offered for Dragon Virtual?
No, Dragon Virtual will not be offered for DK students. We do not feel that is developmentally appropriate for a long period of time. And so the district is not offering Dragon Virtual for our developmental kindergarten students.
What support will we get if my in-person student has to stay home?
So in the event of an in-person student needing to stay home, it probably help to have a little context of the age of the student, but they would be supported in the ways that they would normally be supported if they were sick. Teachers will reach out. I mean, we're in the age of communication, email, in some places remind, text messages. We have class websites. We've got teams at the secondary level, Seesaw at elementary. Teachers can make contact with their sick students to make sure that they're staying on top of their assignments.
Have the teachers already provided their preference for virtual or live? Do the teachers get a choice or not?
We are right now in the process of staffing. And so, but again, until we see the numbers, we don't know how many staff that we will need. At the onset, yes, it is voluntary. Those teachers who would like to teach remote may put in their name to do so, and we'll see how many we get. If we need more, then it could come to a point where, no, we need more than staff than has volunteered, and then it will not necessarily be of a teacher's choice. Again, it depends upon the numbers.
Okay, try to answer some. If my son goes back to school, will he still be with the same teacher he's learning with now?
I think we've already answered that, right?
Yeah, so
Again,
the answer
we do not know that.
It's okay. If we have a teacher from outside of our neighborhood school, Will materials pickup be at our home school or at the teacher's normal location?
That's a great question. It would likely be at the teacher's neighborhood school.
Because most likely that is where the teacher's materials are.
Right.
And I think we could work that out. Like if we needed to have some kind of pickup at each neighborhood school, parents could pick it up at their neighborhood school as well.
Yeah.
We would just have to coordinate that closely with teachers. How do we know? Oops, sorry. Oh, hang on. How will we know which of our children's current teachers will be teaching in person or virtual? Will our child have preference to be in their current teacher's class if they end up choosing the same format as their current teacher?
No, they will not have preference. And again, it will come down to how many kids are going to be in person, how many kids are in Dragon virtual, and then the students will be assigned.
Is the virtual class been considered okay, I'm not sure how this is. I'm going to read it as it's written. Is the virtual class been considered turn in person in case environmental change? I'm not sure what that's asking. Maybe they can reword that. When will we know which teachers will be teaching in person and which will be teaching virtual? If I understand correctly, there is no guarantee that my child will have the same teacher she currently has under either option. Is that correct?
That is correct. And again, we will not know that until, it's hard to say because we do not know the numbers. So they will know before October 26th, somewhere before then. It's simply,
students will be notified prior to October 26th.
Correct.
So, right. Okay. Do we have a projected date or for class teacher assignments?
Prior to October 26th.
As soon as possible.
How will the protocol to control the children in the school? How will be the protocols to control the children in the school, and also we'll have the bus? I'm not sure what that's asking either. During the winter times with snow days, do the students still need to be in the virtual session?
We have not discussed that yet.
Follow up to the first question. What if a student has a cold and they test negative for COVID? I'm assuming they're asking about being quarantined. They would not have to be quarantined. They would be able to come back to school
24 hours after.
4 hours fever free.
Yep.
No, 24 hours of regular symptoms and then fever 72 hours.
Yep.
How will it work if my child is in band? That doesn't pertain to tonight. That's a question for tomorrow at the secondary level. Elementary does not have band. When will we know if we have a new teacher or not? I think we've answered. Will the kids still have Wednesdays as a day with no regular Zoom meetings besides the ones scheduled for groups and individuals?
No, and this is a really good point because that's the distinction between remote and how we're returning back to in-person and virtual. We're trying to make this as close to the actual school calendar as possible. Remote is just a temporary situation. We want to be with our students daily, whether it's virtual or in person.
How will IEPs and special ed resources be handled? Will my child continue with his current resource teacher?
Again, we do not know that. There will be special ed services provided, and that will be handled through the special ed department, but we cannot say, again, if the same teacher will be providing those services.
What is the student's cap for Dragon virtual classes? In other words, is it possible my kid will be in a much larger class than currently, i.e. in a class of 40 versus a class of 25?
We are not looking at classes of 40.
No, no.
Slightly higher, if that, but we have a target that's very close to what in-person classrooms will be.
Okay. Does the change of virtual school teachers also mean that if we choose in person, our child also might not have the same teacher in the building?
Yes, we're all in this together with this teacher assignment. That is accurate.
Okay. Will breakout rooms be eliminated for Dragon Virtual?
I don't see why not. If a teacher decides to use breakout rooms, it's a nice way to break up the classroom into small groups.
Will Dragon Virtual be flexible, or must the student follow the schedule posted? Will lessons be recorded to watch at later time? And also, can students work ahead or assignments given out daily versus weekly?
So the schedule can be flexible on a daily basis. The sessions will be recorded for later viewing, but we're not, we want to encourage our students to be in the live sessions, but we understand that that can't happen always. As far as working ahead, because we are trying to make it as close to the in-person day-to-day schedule, we're not going to have lessons in advance.
Will the work and the assessments done so far transferred to the new class? And where will they pick up where they are in their work?
We're hoping to make this as seamless a transition as possible. So all of the work they've done, we're hoping that we can pick up right exactly at the point they leave off in the virtual setting.
Will Dragon Virtual students have access to the media center, like materials as far as checking out books?
Yes, we can arrange times for after school visits for students to pick up books from the media center and follow social distancing guidelines.
Will children pick up their supplies at their assigned neighborhood elementary, even if they are assigned a virtual teacher that is not from that school?
We hit that earlier, but we can say it again. We'll have material pickups that can be arranged in the teacher's neighborhood school.
Will Wednesday, we already answered that. What about special ed? Will there be virtual option? We are now getting work packets. Sorry.
What was that question?
There will be special ed services in Dragon Virtual, if that was the question. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Then there's something about work packets, but I lost the question.
And students who attend the Pine Tree Center, there's a separate registration for Dragon Virtual for them if you check on the website as well.
Okay. Will there be okay, yes. And we are now, goes with that special ed question. We are now getting work packets being dropped off at our home. Will that continue?
To have work packets dropped off at home?
Yes.
That sounds like a very dedicated special ed teacher.
Yes. Yeah, that would be depending upon what services are requested in the IEP. Unless there is a special circumstance, no, we will not be delivering packets to homes.
Okay. Why are you making this change 1 month into the school year? Why not wait until January and then evaluate?
We feel it is time based on the data that we are looking at, and Mr. Kirby has been going over this every single board meeting. We feel that as a district that we are approaching the time where we can get our students back. And we feel that that is what we need to do, and therefore giving families the option of, if they feel comfortable, they can send their students in person, and if they don't, then they have the Dragon virtual option.
If one of the classmates has COVID-like symptoms but hasn't been confirmed yet, does the entire class get quarantined, or just that one student?
Just that one student. It has to be a positive case.
We will work with the Oakland County
And
Health
we,
Commission.
yes, we will, but it has to be a positive case in order for the whole class to be shut down or go into quarantine or something like that. But this is so hard with each of these situations is different. So again, I really strongly suggest that, you know, if you're interested in the district COVID protocol, that it is on the website, and that's where you look for that. It's very hard to answer these because every situation, like I said, is different. So that's why it has to be investigated. That's why we work with the Oakland County Health Department.
Also, based on that, will that student who is in quarantine have access to any type of remote learning during quarantine, or will they stay school free for 2 weeks?
No, we spoke about it earlier a little bit. We have the tools and the resources available to make virtual connections with our students when they're sick. And we're really going to rely, especially now when cold and flu season, I mean, even if there wasn't a pandemic happening, we have tools and resources now to reach our students who are sick or on vacation to make sure that they're getting their education.
Okay. For Dragon Virtual, we already answered this on Wednesdays. Sorry. Why can't teachers keep the same class and just have a computer up for their virtual students?
We do not feel that that is a quality way to learn, especially at the elementary level. Students need to be actively engaged, and a teacher needs to be actively engaged with their students. So it's very important at the elementary level that teachers have either in-person or virtual students.
What does the in-person schedule look like? 5 days a week, or will it be shorter?
The elementary schedule is 5 days a week. We are, however, looking at the elementary day. It may be shortened a bit. We will know that for sure. Tomorrow, we're looking at possibly 20 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the afternoon to handle buses and to coordinate all of the schedules across the district.
I missed the beginning too. Will the encounter with teachers be live or recorded?
It could be both. Live is our first preference, recorded if you can't make the live session work with your family schedule.
If it goes remote again, will he be back in his current teacher's class, or will he stay with the virtual teacher?
He will stay virtual.
Is there a way that we could adjust the lunch schedule to an hour from 45 minutes? The 45 minutes is very tight, and we're planning on social distant lunches with other kids from the sub. An hour would be really helpful for families to trying to keep a balance.
At this point in time, the schedule is, we're trying to balance many things at the district level. So right now, that is the schedule.
How will attendance be addressed for Dragon Virtual students?
If students attend a live session, they'll be marked as present. If there's correspondence with the teacher, they'll be marked as present. And if there's assignment turn in for the day, they'll be marked as present.
Can you offer some advice what we can do with families who have kids in middle school and elementary? If one of the kids gets sick and the other two are in-person learning, what happens?
Is this get sick? I assume they have COVID?
No, it doesn't say COVID, so I guess I would answer it both ways.
Okay.
If they say they're just sick.
well, if they're just sick, then the other kids may go to school if they're not sick. You know, just like we would typically. However, if the sibling, let's say, is experiencing COVID symptoms or is tested positive for COVID, then no, the other siblings would be quarantined.
What if my child starts to struggle with the virtual learning from an educational standpoint? Will the parents have the option for in-person learning?
No, again, this is a year-long commitment. And as you can see, one of the questions that keeps coming up and one of the most difficult things, I think, is this not being sure of who a student's teacher is. So no, that is why the commitment is for a year, because we do not have to want to have to restaff and reassign students. And as you can see, this impacts both in-person kids and Dragon virtual kids. So families really should have a good handle and an idea as to if their kids can handle virtual, because essentially the elementary schedule is very similar to the virtual schedule. And that is another reason why we tried to keep it similar, so that families could get a good idea of how their student may do virtually if they were interested in that.
So a follow-up question is why are elementary families required to commit for the year, but middle school and high school can switch at the semester?
Middle school and high school have a little bit more flexibility in their schedule with 10-week, 20-week, full-year courses. And specifically at the middle level, the students are still following their daily schedule for core hours. They're able to drop into live sessions with their core teachers. And then at the high school, being through Edgenuity, and this is everything that we'll get into tomorrow night, it's asynchronous, and we can provide a lot of flexibility at the high school level.
So, but I think the question, a key piece of that is they cannot go, Dragon virtual students can go back to in-person, but in-person students cannot go back into Dragon, cannot choose Dragon virtual at semester, correct?
That is correct.
Right, so if you're picking in-person for any level, you're picking in-person for the remainder of the school year. I just think we should make.
Oh, I flipped that backwards and thought about it from the virtual standpoint. My apologies.
No, you're fine. If a district has a snow day, does the virtual have a snow day as well? Or will they end up being a few days ahead of others in school?
We haven't talked about snow days.
For Dragon virtual, will Wednesday, no, we already answered that. Is the virtual teacher assigned to virtual students only, or will they also be teaching in-person students at the same time?
Virtual only.
This says, what about transport to school? How will it work? We're not answering right now about in-person, but our buses will be running. Okay, it isn't clear to me what symptoms will get my child sent home. Does a runny nose by itself force me to keep my child home, or is it a runny nose with a temperature? I've read the FAQ, but I don't get a warm and fuzzy feeling that there is a clear route to get my child back in school. I read it as subjective and not objective requirements to return to school. So I guess and I think that one of the things that I think we had this question come to the office today is, if your student has a cold or is a runny nose, basically what will happen is if the teacher feels that maybe there might be something more to it, they would send the student to the office. The student will call home and you as a parent would say, oh, it's just seasonal allergies. And that would be the end of it. As a parent, you have to be honest with us as to what's going on. We're hoping that at any time, if your child is running a temperature, you keep your student home. That should be in any case, whether we were in a pandemic or not. No temperature reducing like Tylenol or Motrin should be given to send a student to school. So there's not we're going to have, some of this is going to be trial and error. We're going to have to decide. But if your child has a runny nose because of allergies, you can send them to school. That's okay. Will the schedule, we've answered that. A lot of these are about Wednesday. Is all of the workbooks that my students' teacher gave us at the orientation going to be applied to virtual? Worksheets, math workbook, etc. Or will different worksheets be given out?
When the transition's made, the new teacher will be in contact for new materials.
Yeah,
If
the
need
math
be.
workbooks, they will keep. They won't be getting new math workbooks. That will be their math workbook for the year. They probably, if they only got Journal 1, I'm sure that Journal 2 will be given out at some point, so they have that at home. So if they were given any reading books, we will come up with a process to get those reading books. We'll have some kind of book exchange because we know students need books while they're at home as well. So there will be some kind of book exchange for Dragon Virtual families. We haven't worked out all the details on that yet. Will students be following the same curriculum both in person and virtual?
Yes, that is the plan.
Are there definite case count numbers, positivity rates, or some other measure that we will have dipped below that are making in-person class possible? If numbers rise above these levels again, is district-wide remote learning automatically triggered?
Is this based on the COVID numbers?
Yes.
Yeah, again, Mr. Kirby has been covering that every Wednesday. It's not a specific number. There are several different factors that he, along with Oakland County Health, along with area superintendents, are taking a look at. There's not a particular number.
How will the students in virtual learning be evaluated? Nick, do you want me to take that?
Sure.
Okay. We do benchmark testing 3 times a year, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. So we will continue with that. Students can take that in a remote fashion. If they can't, we will invite them into school, so into a school to have that assessment completed on an individual one-on-one basis with social distancing provided and all of the safety procedures we would normally. We just did this with all of our kindergarten and first grade students across the district, and it worked out beautifully. Teachers are able to give assessments online to students, to like a math test, things like that. And sometimes it says that they're invited to small group work, it may be a one-on-one evaluation with the teacher, reading a book or things like that. So we have lots of different ways to be able to assess students and their progress as the year moves forward. Okay, some of these are repeat questions. Do we have a number of how many students per class?
A virtual
or
Virtual, well, it doesn't say. It just says how many students per class.
virtual at the elementary level is going to range between lower and upper L. I think it was 30 or 35.
Okay. Why can't in-person students that need to stay home just join a virtual class temporarily?
Because the virtual class already has their rapport and routine with one another. And so just like we wouldn't send a virtual kid into an in-person class, they have their own relationships that have formed.
Well, and furthermore with that too, just because we're saying that everybody's using the same curriculum maps and pacing guides doesn't mean that classroom A is going to be at the same point as classroom B on any given day. You know, they'll be close, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're even in the same math topic on Tuesday as opposed to Wednesday. It'd be hard to get that sort of alignment.
Can you tell us what percentage of the student population was registered for Dragon Virtual after the original registration period?
We were close to 30% student population.
Is that's K-12?
Yes, K-12, yes.
If choosing Dragon Virtual and a child is progressing through their grades curriculum, is there a possibility of allowing them to work with a grade above, sort of like incorporating a gifted and talented program?
At this point, no.
It is something to consider for the
It is
future,
something
but
that is a good idea, something to
Great idea.
probably consider, but no, that is not the intention at this point.
What do you anticipate the percentage of families choosing Dragon Virtual versus in-person is, do we want to answer that or just?
We have no idea.
Yeah. My son dislikes the current Wednesdays because he cannot interact with the teacher and other kids. He wants to interact with people outside the house. What can be done to improve his ability to have interactions with teachers and other students for social development?
Really put a premium on the time. Make sure that that your son or daughter is buying into the class and buying into those meetings at the beginning of the day, the wellness check-ins, and just making sure that they're connecting with the students in their classes.
I think the other thing is it's important to point out, again, this Wednesday keeps coming up. When we do move to Dragon Virtual, there will be classes on Wednesday. So it won't be like it is right now where it's small group and invitation by the teacher. So that may help with this particular situation. Dragon Virtual will be 5 days a week.
What are the schools doing to keep our kids safe? Will there be reduced class size, etc.?
Reduced class size will come from the number of kids who are going to be in Dragon Virtual versus in person. So when we find out who has registered both for Dragon Virtual, then we will work on the scheduling of our students.
I believe this question's been answered, but it's been being asked in a little bit different way. If the pandemic ends during the school year, would you consider allowing parents to register their students for in-person classes at that point in time?
I think we'd probably have to define what ends means.
I don't see us moving to that point this year, sadly enough. And we did discuss, for instance, when we were discussing about having families make the commitment for a year, for example, if a vaccine were to come out, would we then reconsider? And again, right now, the answer is no, because again, it's very important that we provide as much consistency to our programming and staffing as possible. So,
and depending on when that is, students are attached to their teachers. So that would be a disruption to that.
I just don't see that happening this year. I wish.
What is the highest in-person class size you can have with social distancing in a Lake Orion elementary classroom?
Remember, social distancing, we've said all along that it will not be at 6 feet in a classroom. It will be 3 to 4 feet. And depending upon the classroom, you know, it can be anywhere, you know, we're thinking about 25 would be the max.
Being a two-person working household, why is the sample schedule spread out throughout the day like remote is now? It makes very difficult for working parents to work and pay attention to the clock for when to log in and log off and pay attention to what needs to be done. My daughter's in kindergarten. Can this schedule be simplified to AM or PM learning? Anything to help with the parents?
Well, the schedule was created with the child in mind. So and especially a kindergarten student cannot sit online for that long a period of a time, a chunk. So it's been divided up throughout the day. However, a parent can make their own student schedule so that it works within their home, because each of the lessons will be recorded. So that is something that the parent can do that will make it work within their home for their schedule and for their student.
Yeah, and it can even be broken up by session. If just the morning session, the early morning session isn't the one that's been working out, that one could be the recorded version later on in the day. You can spread those out.
And I do think with the lower L schedule, we really try to put the heavy learning in the morning with literacy and math, so that the afternoon is a special, the small group work and things like that. So I think we try to do that, but again, so the teachers will have some autonomy to create a schedule best for their class needs as well. So again, those are sample schedules. Those are not 100% what your teacher will go by. Teachers will have some autonomy to play with the times within that. Along with the specials times could be at different times, but we're looking at a lower L, meaning kindergarten, first and second, to have specials in the afternoon. Will the virtual teachers teach one grade level, or will there be split grade levels?
It is our hope that the teachers teach one grade level. However, if numbers happen to be extremely low and there is a need for a split, we would consider doing a split, but we try very hard not to do that.
So I think this question kind of goes with that. If there's not enough people to choose Dragon Virtual, will it still be offered?
Yep, we will make it work.
Will Dragon Virtual students have assignments sent to them by Monday and complete by the end of the week? If I remember correctly, I believe that was the structure before.
No, this is going to be more of a daily approach. Students will get their assignments on a day-to-day basis, and those due dates, whatever they're assigned on that day, will be needed to be adhered to.
Will virtual teachers be chosen based on their abilities to teach virtually?
Sorry, go ahead, Heidi.
No, that's okay. Well, we kind of answered this again before. We are approaching this by volunteers first across the district, teachers who would like to teach virtually. And then if we have more spots that need to be filled, then we'll be looking at potentially those who prefer not to teach virtually, but we have to have them teach virtually because of the numbers. So we are taking volunteers first. So those teachers who have an interest in this area.
Is there a chance that the virtual students will be required to return to in-person instruction if the state moves all of us to level 5 or phase 5?
No, not at this time. We have, this will be the options for the remainder of the year, just as we're asking our families to commit. I think it's very important that we would honor the commitment and keep our virtual open all year.
What about specials? Will there be different teachers for Dragon Virtual as well?
Yes, the Dragon Virtual Specials teachers, just like the classroom teachers, will all be volunteer-based. And then, as Mrs. Mercer has said, we'll make whatever arrangements we need to make to get those special teachers involved.
I've skipped this question several times, but I don't know if we just want to restate it one more time for people potentially who have joined late. So I'm understanding correctly that there will be no effort made to keep children with their current teacher if it ends up being possible. I don't think that's what we said. Obviously, we want kids with their current teacher, but based on Dragon Virtual and how many students there are, we may have to change that. That's not our choice. That's not what we would want, but it is a possibility.
Yeah, and I think it can't be understated that if your child's teacher is one of the teachers that go virtual and you elect to go virtual, we'll do everything in our power to keep them together.
If a student is showing symptoms of COVID, are they required to be tested and provided negative results to return to school for clearance? Or will the testing be up to the parent and the results just be verbalized to the office and not shown positive or negative proof?
We cannot require testing.
If they do get tested, will they have to show whether it was positive or negative?
We will ask that they communicate back with us so that we can do contact tracing. That's the important piece, and I think everybody's responsibility for keeping everybody safe. While we can't require testing, if a family does get tested and a student does test positive, then we would be asking for that family to let us know, just so that we can make sure that other families are made aware. No names, obviously, would be shared. That is all confidential. But again, in order to keep everybody safe, we would ask that if a student is tested positive and they have been around other students, that they let us know that.
Does LOCS have enough teachers to staff both in-person and virtual if there is a relatively even split amongst enrollment for either option?
At this point in time, we are thinking so.
Additionally, will there be student caps relative to virtual teacher assignments?
Yes, there will be teacher caps.
Can you explain what lunch and recess will look like in Dragon Virtual?
That's an open-ended one. That's what's been happening so far.
Really,
I
lunch
think
and
this
recess
is one
is
of
up to the parents. It's basically
yeah,
a break for the child to eat something and do hopefully some kind of physical activity, go outside,
yeah,
play, do
have
something to
fun.
get some energy out, have fun.
Yeah.
We're just putting it in a time slot to make sure that that happens. If the state turns our district into phase 6 or drops protocols entirely, although highly unlikely, will return to school for virtual students be reevaluated to be able to enter the classroom in person?
Again, at this point in time, we have no intention of doing that because of, again, the staffing, the consistency. So no.
What is going to be the protocol for lunch for in person?
This is not in person.
This is not in person. We're not. Can you clarify if masks are required for in-person learning? Masks are required.
Masks are required.
My student had an ESL services last year, but has not received any this year. If we pick Dragon Virtual, will ESL services start up at some point? Yes, and if you haven't
Yeah.
received ESL services, you need to reach out to the building administrator to find out why that has not started. I know that they are doing some assessments with students right now, so they may not have started groups, but groups will be starting shortly if they haven't. So you do need to reach out to the building administrator to find out why you haven't been in contact with the teacher. Okay. Trying to, some of these are, the Dragon Virtual asks for student ID for enrollment. I don't know that. Do I need that to enroll? And if so, how do I get that?
We are requesting that to make sure that students are actually enrolled in LOCS. You can contact your building for that information.
Yeah, all building secretaries can give you a student ID.
Yeah.
So just call the school, they'll give you the student ID over the phone.
We should say too, it is also on Power School, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, just depending on what grade.
Yes, 4th and 5th are on Power School.
Do we need any other school electronic materials for Dragon Virtual in comparison to remote?
No, what you have right now should be fine for virtual.
Some of these we've answered. Will our kids have the same neighborhood school specials teachers if they do Dragon Virtual?
We do not know that.
We do not know that. There's a possibility, but there's a strong possibility they will not. Will the kids that are signing up to come back to in-school learning, will they be on virtual for the latter part of the week? If you're talking about the staggered start, meaning half of the students come on Monday and Tuesday based on alphabet, the other half of the students comes Wednesday and Thursday, and then everybody comes Friday. Yes, on the days they're not in school, there will be remote learning available on Seesaw. Why are we distinguishing between virtual and remote programs when in reality they seem to be the same? This seems confusing. The term virtual has different definition at other schools. Is there an advantage that's not being communicated?
No, there's really no advantage. The main distinction is that remote is a temporary stopgap, or it's a solution for a temporary problem. Virtual settings are meant to be lasting.
Will attendance be taken in Dragon Virtual?
Yes. And that will be, again, we answered this earlier, but that'll be through live meetings, assessments, and correspondence with the teacher.
What is going to happen with all the assessment data students just have participated in? Will it be transferred to the new teacher? Yes, we use a program called Illuminate to house all of our data. And as soon as we have Dragon virtual classes made, the teacher will have access to all of that data that the students just participated in. Sorry, some of these are a lot of the same questions. I mean, a lot of the questions are still not understanding why they can't pick in person at a later date. I don't know if you want to hit that one more time as to why we're making them choose for a whole year.
We have about 5 more minutes in this session.
Okay.
That's the important ones here. Thank you.
It's really important to note that the year-long commitment stems from staffing, and from the standpoint of if there's a virtual first grade class that dipped below a sustainable number of students, those students that would switch back to in-person, they're going into a classroom as well. And that raises a lot of questions about numbers in those classrooms. But at the same time, we're running a virtual classroom with limited number of students. It happens the other way too. If students wanted to transfer from in-person to virtual, would we have enough staff to run these sorts of sessions or these sorts of classrooms with lower numbers or extreme numbers?
We were told originally that there would be a 10 to 15 minute mini lesson followed by independent small group one-on-one time. Many current lessons are taking up the entire block of time with lots of time answering several student questions. Is there a format that teachers are encouraged to follow?
We're not encouraging teachers to follow any specific method. This is really coming down to a teacher's teaching practice. In the virtual setting, based on the sample schedules that we've communicated, that time that's set aside for literacy in the virtual setting is up to the teacher's discretion.
Will the teachers be Lake Orion teachers for Dragon Virtual?
Absolutely.
For elementary, yes. Why did they decide to rush into face-to-face learning after stating they would reevaluate in November? That implied that they weren't considering heading back before November, and now they will be back before Halloween and elections with so many polling locations being schools. That seems to be a very difficult situation to control, having everyone masked, since you don't have to wear one to vote, as it would constitute discrimination.
Well, and this will be our last question, but we do not have school that is in session on the day of election. We purposefully planned that well before COVID. The other thing to note that people coming into our buildings, even to vote, will have limited access. So they will be going directly into, for instance, most of the areas are our gyms where they will be voting. These people will not be, our community members coming in to vote will not be roaming around the building. And then obviously the gym will be cleaned and ready for our students the next day.
Here's one last question about technology. Any news regarding new iPads or laptops? Will these be available specifically for Dragon Virtual students?
In fact, I just had a technology meeting today. Those that have old iPads or are still in need of an iPad or a laptop, we are still looking at the middle of October. And yes, we will be all students, regardless of whether you're in person or whether you're Dragon Virtual. If you are still needing a device, you will get the device. If you have a device that is older, and we know who you are, you'll be getting an email as to when we will swap your device out for a new device. So with that, we will continue to answer questions. Please make sure that you are checking the website for our frequently asked questions. We will continue to update that. We will continue this evening's meeting has been recorded, so Mark will get that posted on the website as well. And the questions that we didn't get to this evening, we will go through those. And again, those will be posted on the frequently asked questions. Along with, there's information, Nick gave out his email, and so you can also email him directly with any questions. Thank you again for joining us this evening. We truly appreciate your time.